the challenging bit perhaps is that, I mean, Steve, you use the word probably quite consciously, the education industry, and that essentially is the challenge, isn't it? That a lot of education, higher education, to be clear, is built around what is convenient for the institution, because again, we come back to that power balance, we are the ones that dictate what academic rigor and standards and accreditation are. And so, we build the system. What are the chances that if you're doing a 36-hour module in leadership, that you know how to be a leader at the end of 36 hours is very, very abstract. And, but why is it 36 hours? It's because of administrative convenience. It's because it fits well for the schedule. It fits into the Excel. It fits with planning, So the mentality of education as an industry is going to be really challenged. Perhaps we could say that this is something that had been developing. There's more conversations around changing education, more in, kind of changing from within, rather than that kind of complete transformation that people like Sir Ken Robinson talks about, but it's just been accelerated. It's like the world has other plans. Sorry, time's up. You've got to think about this now. You don't have the luxury of 10, 15 years. And of course, this isn't going to be our last rodeo. There's other challenges around the corner. This upcoming 20, 30 years is going to be incredibly difficult. And so we come back to that point of like, okay, you've got these 900,000 people in the UK looking to reskill. You've got the structural issues with formal education laid bare by the pandemic. You've got other options being presented, people like, Google saying, hey, you don't need to go for 4 years to do a degree. We'll give you a 6-month certificate and you pretty much guaranteed a job at the end of it. So time's up. We have no more options here. Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think that, the big oil tanker that is higher education is going to manage to turn around and miss the iceberg? Or, I mean, is this going to be the demise of higher education as we know it?
I think it already is happening, Mark. I think the problem is that the industry itself is so entrenched in the model that it has perpetuated for hundreds of years that it may be impossible for some of those institutions to embrace any kind of change whatsoever. I think big institutions like Harvard and Princeton, whatever, they have enough money that they can continue regardless of what goes on in the marketplace. And students will always want to go to those kind of institutions because of the prestige that goes with it. But another dimension that we haven't mentioned yet is that teachers are starting to realize that they don't need schools to teach, that they can actually take their knowledge and skills and experience directly to the marketplace using one of the many platforms that are now available to them. And they can start to deliver their own material directly to students in a way that just wasn't conceivable, 5 years ago, perhaps. And this is something that's going to increase. Teachers are going to start to say, look at the amount of money that the school is charging the students and look how little I get. I could actually take this directly to students using a platform I create for myself, using Zoom, or using a platform, one of the many platforms that have emerged over the last year, and deliver this content directly to students myself. And I could nurture those students. I could share my skills with them. I could give them a really good experience where at the end of that experience, they can actually demonstrate that they have caught the skill, they have mastered the skill in a way that in the 36 hours in the uni course probably wouldn't happen, because if it was at a UK university, all they would be required to do is write a 3,000 word essay. And a 3,000 word essay on leadership, come on, I mean, really, are we in the 21st century or what? So I think the industry itself is really struggling to embrace this change. In fact, I don't think it is embracing it, or if it is, only on the margins. I think even business schools that should be probably at the forefront of that recognition, they're not doing it either, and they're still delivering the same kind of programs over and over again. But I think I'm seeing teachers who are suddenly realizing, maybe I don't actually need a school and I could actually do this by myself.
Fascinating, this idea of people circumventing the model. It's almost like universities are still there like, la, 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 this isn't happening. And teachers are saying, you know what, I'm going to deliver my course here. And students saying, you know what, I'm going to reskill this way. And really the missing link, and something we've not really touched on, is in the end, it's employers, right? Because the tyranny of the idea of accreditation is it's the one last bastion of the system, saying, well, you must certify your knowledge, and that's accreditation and that's standards. But why does that exist? I mean, really, it was for the Industrial Revolution, right? It was to say these people are ready for employment. And when employers finally start to be more creative about saying, well, look, how can we figure out how you can demonstrate your level of skill or competence in a certain area? And once that reaches maturity and kind of, you know, a tipping point, really, which is it's on its way, there really is nothing to hang on to in the end. It's the last domino is going to fall. And it's like you say, Steve, apart from the kind of legacy institutions like Harvard and things who will survive for many, many years, all the others in the middle, if they don't come to a system where universities are a place in which we can delight in the experience of learning, you know, and focus on, okay, how do we support professors and teachers to give the best experience of learning, rather than just, you've got to listen to me because I control the exam, I'm the gatekeeper. You know, that's gone. So do you think, I mean, are we going to see of the many hundreds of thousands of institutions in the world, do you think we're going to see a kind of mass culling of these institutions? I mean, is that what's ahead in the next couple of years?
I don't think they have a choice, Mark. In the end, we're seeing at higher education being in the middle of this whole circle I was mentioning before, and you've got from one side K-12 already pushing towards that direction, from the other side companies pushing as well towards that direction, and they're just in the middle. Higher education is there standing still, but they need to make the change, because otherwise, as Steve said, on top you get the professors, and maybe from the bottom down you get another a player. And you brought a very interesting point here, being the accreditations, and I personally believe that that's something that is, or I mean, it was something very positive for few years for the higher education system. However, nowadays it's exactly what's preventing them to move forward, and what's preventing them to hop on an innovative way and just say, you know what, I want to continue delivering higher education with standards, but the standards have changed. And the standards are no longer to be given by an accredited body. They are to be given by companies, by parents, and going back to what I was mentioning before with K-12 and looking at very further years, those kids who are starting today, whenever they become parents in few years, we'll be looking at a generation that would be completely out of the current system. So really, it's not like higher education has a choice. We are at very early years of their change, but they are already lagging behind some of the other players in this whole ecosystem, and it's just a matter of powers being shifted. I think that's what we're looking at in this particular sense.
Yeah, I spoke recently to somebody who who works with one of these new online providers offering an MBA program entirely via your mobile phone. It's accredited by nobody. You know, the quality is what the quality is. You're basically learning from your mobile phone. Everything is pre-recorded. But what you have access to is a network. You have an access to business professionals all over the world, and you can create opportunities for yourself by doing that. And I understand at the moment they have 50,000 students, 50,000 students, and they only started about 5 years ago.
Is this the core MBA?
Yeah,
I thought the same.
I was resisting mentioning in case they thought it was an endorsement, but yeah, I mean, and there's a Quantic MBA, and there are going to be a lot of those kind of models where people are increasingly less bothered about, is this accredited, is this not accredited, and more bothered with, what do I get from this? And I listened to a podcast recently about the difference between people who go to private institutions and people who don't. And I think it's true when the participants said that in a private business school kind of situation, or the Power MBA or whatever, you're not just taught the ideas and concepts that would be expected to be part of those programs, but you're taught how to network, you're taught how to hustle, you're taught how to create opportunities for yourself that in a traditional university context you wouldn't be, because you'd be too busy writing your 3,000 word essay on leadership. And I think, you know, I went through my LinkedIn contacts recently and I had a quick check on all of the students, former students that I have contacts with from the various business schools that I've worked with, and they're all working. Every single one of them is working. Many of them have started up their own businesses. And that's an incredible thing. Now, it's not because I think that the education they received was necessarily on a par with Harvard, but I think what they did experience was they were given the opportunity to learn from real business professionals. They were introduced to a network of business professionals, and they were then able to hustle and create opportunities for themselves that kids who go to traditional forms of university would not have the opportunity to do. So I think universities have to have a fundamental rethink of their purpose. And that doesn't mean to say that it shouldn't be a place where, as you said, Mark, people can enjoy the learning experience, enjoy being presented with big ideas. That has to continue, but there has to be a repurposing of it. What is it for? What is it designed to do? And how can I shape my learning so that what I'm doing is useful and not just repeating what other people have said in my 3,000 word essay on whatever?
That's an interesting thing about the repurposing, because you do have this kind of slight divergence now. Well, it's not slight, it's huge. That's pretty clear between the kind of the academic paths in terms of academia and the sort of professional paths. And that's not really, you know, supported in terms of the differences in accreditation. So if you've got somebody that wants to do a doctorate, you know, I think that accreditation has its place, you know, that you can evidence knowledge to a certain depth, and of course the analytical skills to be able to continue on that path, you know, so that you can then have those skills to support independent research and provide us with, you know, a contribution to the body of evidence that we need to make practical decisions on. So, you know, and obviously there's other fields as well, like law. I mean, I want to know that my surgeon has accreditation, to be honest. You know, I don't know about a mobile phone based surgery masters. You know, there are certain things. I think it has a place, but I think we need to have those conversations about it. It comes back to exactly what you said: purpose, repurposing. Education means repurposing accreditation, and actually thinking about what we measure. I mean, in Britain, we measure success in GDP. In Bhutan, it's measured by happiness. You know, what are we trying to measure here in terms of saying that somebody is successful in learning? These conversations need to be had, but there has to be an openness, right? You have to.
I think. Oh. I think, Mark, it goes back to the ability of and the shift of stopping just measuring a fish for its ability to climb a tree, as we've discussed in some extent. You can't be measuring everyone with the same indicators. You can't be expecting everyone to have accreditations as law or medicine or doctoral programs would have. What if you have other sorts of skills? And Steve was jumping on the soft skills side, which is serving a lot of students, and that's not being measured. You're being measured by your hard skills and grades still. What if what comes out of a transcript is no longer the importance of grade, but the importance of the comments side? How are the students performing from a soft skills matter that you cannot necessarily quantify in a grade, but actually qualify in how those students will be perceived in the upcoming market that they will be joining? Just an open question there.
Yeah, I think I really connect with that. And I think to connect with your point about doctors, lawyers, accountants, these ones, I think, have always been profoundly skills based. At the end of the day, you know, you're learning theories and ideas, but you have to be able to do something with it. And that's different from, I mean, my first degree was in commerce. you know, I wasn't expected to do anything with that other than pass. You know, it didn't lead to a job. It was just commerce. I was learning about commerce. So I think we need to reconsider, you know, apart from, yeah, we all want a surgeon who hasn't learned how to do surgery on Udemy, I guess. But, you know, in terms of for the vast majority of people going to uni, can I have a bit more autonomy over what I'm learning and how I'm learning it? And what I do to demonstrate that learning? Can it be more skills based? Can I leave university with a portfolio as though I was like an artist, that I can show a prospective employer, here's what I can do, as well as here's what I know and understand. And I think that shift is imperative. And I think that's why we'll see more people going to providers who can offer them that opportunity.
It comes back to lifelong learning skills as well, because I mean, what you're talking about is different ways to evidence skills, but it's almost as if universities worry like, we've got to make sure they know everything before we let them out into the world, as if we're not capable of shoring up the gaps in our knowledge ourselves. So how about if we are shifting instead to making sure that we have those lifelong learning skills, we have the curiosity and the spark inside us, we've connected with why we're doing it, and we were able metacognitively to talk about, I understand how I learn and how I learn best. And here, you know, listen to me talking about, I clearly know how to find out what I need to know in the future. Because, you know, it's like you were saying earlier, Alejandra, the jobs we're preparing students for don't exist yet. And so it's much more important to focus on things that are adaptable, you know, things that can be applied to every situation, rather than trying to say, we need to make sure you can tick all these boxes by the time you leave, and then you find out that actually the world's changed 5 minutes later. It's pointless.